We are going to get inside that big wooden horse and cross the city gates to be able to figure out how to play and beat Blurple. So it feels like for the last couple months, I've just kind of been sitting on that beach, the same as Brad Pitt, trying to figure out how to get behind enemy lines. So what I mean by that, I guess, is that I've been playing aggro decks for months. Actually, I've probably been playing aggro decks or tempo decks for years now. And it just kind of feels like, especially with the amount of control decks that are out there and how prevalent Blurple is, that I have to figure out my game plan against Blurple, because my game plan can't simply be to win the dice roll and hope I go fast enough. So yeah, my answer for that, I guess, was to pick up Blurple and learn how to play Blurple. Logic here being you can't really figure out how to defeat something unless you know what it wants to do, because you're going to try to undermine that. And no matter what, I mean, aggro's plan is going to be going as fast as it can to try to get under Blurple. But what is Blurple's plan? So when I started this was all to figure out how to play control better so that I could play against control better. And unfortunately, I've kind of liked playing Blurple. I really like card draw. I like having answers. I like having options. And Blurple's got a lot of that. So it's got a lot of things going for it. So not saying I'm converted to control yet, but I am definitely saying that I see the appeal. So let's talk about kind of Blurple, I guess. So even though this could be about any control deck and the other big control deck in the format currently, we're talking Fabled, by the way. I know Whispers in the Well releases in a couple weeks. No idea what will happen from that. But your two big control decks are the Under the Seas, so the Clarabelle Control style one, and the Dumbo Blurple list. And you can pretty much assume that both of them will work the same way, though because I've been playing a lot of Blurple, Blurple's the perspective that I'm going to use here. So we've already talked about the general big kind of concepts and big strategies that control decks want to rely on to be able to win the game. So today I'm just going to focus on the early parts of the game. And I want to talk about kind of early game plays, opening hands, mulligans, that type of thing. So logically, you might think that the logical place to start is with our opening hand and our mulligans. What do we want to be able to play the early game to be able to win the game? However, I'm going to say that that is actually not the spot you want to start. What you want to start is you want to start at what your ideal turn like 3 or 4 play would be and work backwards, knowing what you want to play on each of those turns. So turn 3, in order to play that on turn 3, what do you need to play on turn 2? In order to get there, what do you need to play on turn 1? And then that will dictate what you need in your opening hand. So we're going to start there and work our way backwards. So why do I really only plan out to turn 1, 2, and 3? Well, the reason behind this is you start the game with 7 cards in your hand, 8 if you are going second, and by the time you hit like turn 3 or 4, you're either out of the original cards in your opening hand or you're having to respond to what your opponent's doing. Turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, you can kind of do them or plan them out without knowing exactly what your opponent's on, but by the time we hit kind of that mid-game part, we want to be responding to our opponents more than we want to just be doing our own thing. If we can just do our own thing, probably means our opponent is bricked and doesn't have anything to do, which is great. That's fine. But turn 1, 2, and 3 is what I start as far as the plan goes. So how does Blurple want to, or Cow Control can do this too, Clarabelle Control can do this too. What does it want? Well, first off, we are going to obviously need ink. Both of these decks play a good amount of uninkables, not the most I've seen. I played 22 in an aggro deck once, and it worked out fine. That worked out perfectly fine. I didn't have to ink above 3, and that really helps. However, these decks do need to get up to like 7, 8, 9, 10 ink. I think somebody was playing at the store the other day and had it looked like 15, 16, 17 ink out. Like their ink was almost bigger than their deck by the end of the game. So if that is the case, we obviously need inkables in our opening hand. We need something to be able to play turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, and we want to ramp, which means we either need more inkables in our hand to be able to ramp, or we need the ramp cards. And then by the time we hit that turn 3, we might have 1 or 2 cards in our hand from our opening hand still, but that is the point where, like I said, we need to be responding to what's going on. So let's move on to exactly what the plan is. Ideally, we want to play something turn 1. The reason we want to play something turn 1 is we want to be able to respond to what our opponent is doing. Now, if you think about this, the play versus the draw is two slightly different plans. If you are on the play, you can skip your first turn character if you want, because they might be necessary for an ink later. Because if you're going to ramp on turn 2, it is possible that you can play that first turn character if it is if it's a free one to be able to play in your hand as far as like ink allocations go. So turn 1, ideally, we want to be able to play a character if we're on the draw, or potentially be able to play one if we're on the play as well, especially if we know if we're going to be playing against aggro. So that is one card that we're going to need to potentially be able to play character-wise. Turn 2, we desperately need to ramp. We need to ramp so hard that I would say that if we're not ramping, we're pretty much, like, unless our opponent's not doing great either, we're going to lose the game. So you absolutely need to ramp. So what are your ramp options? Our ramp options are either Sail the Azurite Sea, which is great because it draws you a card, but you need another inkable in your hand to be able to ink off of it. That's why I said you potentially don't want to play your first turn character, because you might be forced to ink it off of Sail the Azurite Sea, or you might be able to play it off of Sail the Azurite Sea. So Sail the Azurite Sea lets you ink 2 cards per turn, which means you can ink a card for the turn, tap 2, play Sail, draw a card, play another ink, exert that 1 ink, play a 1-drop character, and kind of where you would be if you played at turn 1, but you know you have the options in case you did need that for ink. Your other ramp option is Tippo, which is great because it allows you to ink something that's not otherwise inkable. So if you get stuck with like big Hades, big Elsa in your hand that are uninkable for first turn, it does allow you to change those into ink, which can get you ahead. The downside of Tippo is that he doesn't draw you a card compared to Sail, but the upside as well is that he is a body that sticks around that can challenge things. Now a 1-2 can't do a huge amount, but if your first turn play if you did play a character, if your first turn play was a Basil, you can support Tippo, and he's now hitting for 3. So it doesn't take out a Daisy still, but it's still pretty good and can take out like Nalas and whatnot, and those are kind of your bigger early turn threats as far as at least aggro goes. By turn 3, we should have ramped. So turn 1 we played an ink, turn and potentially character. Turn 2 we ramped, so we have 3 ink now, and maybe a second character depending if we played Tippo, which means turn 3 we are on 4 ink, and we can play our 4 costed characters. Best one in my opinion to play is Genie because it gives you the card draw. Card draw is very important. However, our other options here are Iago. Iago is a good fighter. He's a 4/6, so if you're seeing a bunch of things that you just need to challenge into on your opponent's side, Iago can do that. And your other option is Madame Mim Elephant, and she is great too because she gets your character back to your hand. So picture this here. You have played a Tippo or you've played a Basil or whatever. You can quest with them and then play the Madame Mim Elephant to be able to bounce them back to your hand. Or you might be able to challenge into a character, put 1 damage on them, and then play the Madame Mim Elephant and get them back to your hand so that you can, so that there's no damage sticking around there, just in case you're worried about that. It also means that you have another ink to be able to play for next turn because all that stuff is inkable. So that is turn 3. Now, turn 4 options. I know I said I plan out to turn 3, but it's good to be able to bear in mind what you potentially want to do on turn 4. Because that will, if you have them in your opening hand and you're able to hold off and not ink them to be able to get to them, that helps you get 1 more turn forward. So what are your options for turn 4? So on turn 4, we're on 5 ink because we've ramped. We've played in ink every single turn and we've ramped, so we're on 5 ink on turn 4, which is great. So our options here would be Dumbo. Dumbo is not a turn 4 play, and he's not a turn 4 play because he draws you cards when a character with evasive quest, so long as you pay 1 extra ink. So if Dumbo costs 4 and you play him on turn 3 when you only have 4 ink, it means that he's not drawing you that extra card. I may have said that wrong the second time ago, but you want to be playing Dumbo when you have 5 ink out because he does because that will draw you that extra card. Another fantastic one is also the Fifth Spirit. She's kind of like a game changer for Amethyst decks because she exerts a character, and you will now start to be able to challenge things down and pick your challenges, which will start to let you wipe and clear the board. We're going to talk about mid-game stuff later, which this kind of turn 4-5 ink area is more of the mid-game, so we'll talk about that another time. But that is what our turn 1, 2, and 3 ideal situation looks like. So if we move on now to our opening hands, we have our plan. That means working backwards, we can now determine what we want in our opening hands. So by far, like I said, the most important part is ramp. We also need inkables. Depending on what you're playing against, you might want some early challengers. And ramp. And ramp is kind of the most important part. Ramp is make it or break it in a lot of cases. So if you're looking at your opening hand, if you have like a Basil or a Rafiki or a, what's the other one? Basil, Rafiki. If you have one of the 1-drops, essentially, you can keep it. May as well keep it. They're all inkable anyways, so you can either play it on turn 1 or play it on turn 2, but have potential ink for if you need it. For turn 2, we want to be ramping. So if you have any ramp in your hand, hold it. If you have a Sail the Azurite Sea, totally keep that. If you have a Tippo, totally keep that. If you draw both of them off the mulligan, or if you have both of them in your opening hand, keep both of them. Because being able to have an option about which one you want to play is really good. If you are looking at a hand of uninkables, playing Tippo is the better option here because you can ink one of the uninkables off of it. Or if you need more characters out. Otherwise, Sail the Azurite Sea draws your card, and that's just kind of gold in this game. So that is turn 1 play, turn 2 ramp, turn 3, which is a 4-drop, so not a 3-drop. We're skipping all the way to 4. Genie's ideal. He's uninkable, but I'd still keep him in my opening hand before I mulligan. Or kind of like Iago or Madame Mim. Those are all situational depending on what you're playing against, but totally keep one of those, and then you're going to need some ink. So that tells us what we want to keep. Stuff that I would toss back without a moment's hesitation would definitely be Hades and Big Elsa. A lot of like the higher costed characters, I'll put images up as I find them, that especially the ones that are uninkable would go back right away for me because we want stuff that, especially early game, we want stuff that we can use either as ink or as characters to be able to get to that mid-game part. And we're going to be getting card draw. If this deck doesn't get card draw, it is such an unlucky break. So if we're going to be getting card draw anyways, we're going to be able to refill our hand. That is my gist with getting behind the wall in the Trojan horse this week to figure out how to play Blurple. The mid-game to late game is an exceptionally important area. And it is too much to talk about, well, talking about the early game, so we'll talk about mid to late game next week. But I will show you some gameplay right now with some ideal opening hands, and you can see how important that ramp is, and how if you don't have that ramp or those early turn kind of plays like the things to challenge characters down, or early game drawing cards, how it can really stun you. So let's go into gameplay, and we'll go from there. All right, so let's go look at some of our example games. I started and I just kind of inked and passed. And I think Josh said that he accidentally saw the top card, so we shuffled to kind of do the ethical thing there. Although we're just playtesting, I wouldn't have given him a hard time about it. He is going to ink and play a Bobby. So this is a control deck versus control deck. So you'll see good number of examples of everything that I've said about the early turn plays from both of us in this one. I didn't get my turn 1 play, so I'm going to get my turn 2 ramp though, which is Sail. So I get to draw a card off of it. No 1-drop in my hand still, so I'm not playing anything off of it. Josh is safe to quest. This is kind of that part where it's nice to sometimes have a 1-drop character. It might stop your opponent from questing, or on Josh's side of the control here, it enabled him to quest since I didn't have anything. Back to my turn, I am going to play what I said was the ideal turn 3 for ink play, which is Genie. So drawing cards is exceptionally important. And you'll see kind of as the game goes on how both of us being control decks do keep our hands pretty full. Josh is a Clarabelle. Now, I know that Clarabelle is a shift target for the bigger Clarabelle, which is going to be a problem. here's, I guess, the example of Dumbo. So Dumbo comes out on turn 4, or when you have 5 ink, because you should have played an evasive character the previous turn, which means you can pay that extra ink that you have to be able to exert that evasive character and be able to draw a card off of it. Now, you might look at Genie and think logically he's got 2 lore pips there on him. He should be questing for 2 as opposed to doing the Dumbo ability, but early game like this, I want more cards in my hand, more than I want that extra piece of lore. So being able to get the car is way more beneficial than being able to get the lore. I'm going to play Elsa, the 5th Spirit, and I am going to tap down a Clarabelle because I don't want him to shift up to the big Clarabelle, because then he's just going to run away with the game. I am looking here and I'm debating, how do I want to get rid of that Clarabelle? I could either throw both the Genie and the Elsa into it, or I could throw the Dumbo into it. So I'm going to choose the Dumbo because the Dumbo's going to stick around, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing that I said last turn, which is prioritize the card draw over the lore. So I'm going to use Dumbo's Making History ability, or Breaking Records ability. I can't remember which one's which right now, but I'm going to use it on the Genie to get him to draw me a card and gain me a lore, as opposed to just questing and gaining 2 lore. Josh's turn here, he is going to ramp. The nice thing about him having a Tippo is that Tippo can help sing Under the Sea, and that'll get like all of my characters. Dumbo will stick around, but like Dumbo's close to being gone. Here is the example that we'll get into next week about Blurple having so many answers all of the time. I was able to use Hades to get rid of his Baymax, which was his big threat card. And then since I had no ink left, I just quested with my characters, putting me up there to 6. The evasive characters is great because they're safe. Now Josh plays the big Clarabelle, so he had 2 big Clarabelles in his hand, so 2 shift targets, and he's going to discard Under the Sea. The reason he does that is because he wants to be able to draw more cards, and he draws cards equal to me. So I have to get rid of that Clarabelle because I don't want him to draw that many more cards. Counting up my ink here, I'm trying to figure out what my best use of everything here is. I'm going to play a Genie to draw a card because seeing what we can get with our card draw and the options in our hand is important. I'm going to quest with Hades, and then I'm going to play Magical Maneuvers. I like this card. This lets you buy back one of your cards, and I'm going to use it. Its second ability is it exerts a character, and then I'm going to use Into the Unknown to get rid of his character. So that's 3 things that I kind of did that turn. I quested with Hades, I used Magical Maneuvers, and Into the Unknown. So that is kind of my example of how good it feels to play Blurple, because mid to late game, when your typical decks are top decking, this deck has not run out of cards. It has options that it can be playing more than one thing a turn. Like I said, the magic cards there are Hades, since we don't have enough, and he's going to get rid of my threats there that he wants to see go away, but the evasive is going to be a problem for him. Back to my turn. I am going to deploy some of the cards. So you can see I've got like, 1, 2, I think I've got 6 or 7 cards in my hand. So I'm going to replay that Hades that I bought back last turn to be able to get rid of his Hades. Reason for that is because his Hades is kind of the biggest thing on the board. I play a Basil. I ended up inking the Basil here because it's more beneficial as ink, because a 2/1's not really that relevant this late in the game. And then I'm going to quest. Now I could have no, I couldn't have done anything else with them. So I'm questing there to get up to 15. It's going to push towards the end of the game there, which means that Josh is really going to have to do something about that. And with his just smaller Clarabelle, I guess a middle Clarabelle, a Bobby, and a Tippo, he's not going to be able to play much to get rid of my things. So he's going to do Stop Chaos in its tracks. So that bounces 2 characters back to their player's hand. And so it's not really a stopping card. It doesn't really stop your opponent. It just kind of buys you an extra turn. And that extra turn can make a huge difference. Reason he's questing there is because he's going to play Pleaky, so he may as well get the lore out of the character before it goes to the inkwell. Back to my turn. I'm going to play a Genie. Again, I want to draw cards first to be able to see what all my options are. I'm going to play a Dumbo, and then I'm going to use its ability to on the Elsa to be able to draw cards off of her and gain a lore. It's not like it saves me that much extra because she only quests for 1 anyways. Quest with the Hades, pushing myself up to 18, which is a very commanding presence on my part, and it's a tough one to come back from on my opponent's side. So at this point in time, Josh is just going to call the game there. There's not much that would have helped him win the game, but you can see how important those early game plays are to be able to set you up to take control of the game early, and that lets you just continue to control it mid-game. All right, so that was a game that you are able to see how important it is to be able to have a first, second, third turn setup. Now, it's not 100% necessary. It's not like if you miss something, you're going to lose the game. If you don't have a first turn play, that's okay. If you don't have an ideal third turn 4-drop, that's okay as well. The ramp is the most important part, but if you are quick on your toes, you can even survive not being able to have ramp. I think Blurple is a lot of fun. Unfortunately, I went into this saying I'm not going to play Blurple. I'm just going to learn how to play against it, and I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying cards in my hand. I'm enjoying answers. I'm sure if you guys, if anybody else, especially aggro players, pick it up and start playing it and like figuring out that they got to switch their brains. They just completely do a 180. You're not playing aggro. You're not racing the finish line. You're doing like, if you're the tortoise and the hare, you're the hare in Blurple, not the tortoise, other way around. You're the tortoise in Blurple, not the hare. So you want to be playing the slow game to be able to like win and win by controlling everything. So where was I going with that? You'll enjoy it too. You'll enjoy having cards in your hand. That's where I was going to go with that. Aggro players, you will really enjoy not having to top deck. I'm going with my metaphor here about the Trojan horse. Next week, we will already have been in that horse behind the walls of Troy, and we'll be climbing out of that very large sculpture and being able to figure out how to attack from within. So we're going to talk about mid to late game stuff next week with Blurple. If you want to play cow control and this is kind of like your idea of how to play any control deck, it's going to be the same type of thing, especially if Sapphire's in it. Turn 1, something to be able to interact with your opponent. Turn 2, ramp. Turn 3, a 4-drop that is helpful to you in some way, shape, or form. With cow control, you're definitely moving up towards Clarabelles a little bit more and Baymaxes to be able to just start singing Under the Sea and have your opponent never have a board again. I'll do a specific video on that, but that's kind of, I guess, my Cole's notes of that. Things I have really learned from this. I really like I said, cards in my hand, and I might seriously be done with aggro. I didn't think I'd say that at the beginning of this. I thought I'd say, okay, I know how to beat Blurple now, but yep, might be turning in aggro for control.